Welcome to Abyss Gazing, a horror podcast that celebrates all things spooky and mental health.
I'm your co-host, Mark.
And I am your co-host, Josh. And on this episode, we are flying solo, but what are we talking about?
We are talking about Krampus.
And I think we should specifically mention that we're talking about the naughty cut.
Yeah, it came out earlier this week. Was it the 7th, I believe it was?
Mm-hmm.
They released the naughty cut.
Yes, Scream Factory has released it. It was now 4K, and if you guys haven't checked it out, we will provide a link in the descriptions below. And I'm also going to say that this was my first time watching this movie, which surprises the mess out of me because I love just about everyone in this cast. I love Mike Daltrey as a writer and a director. I've got some problems with the choices he's made as a writer in his career. I'm looking at you, Superman Returns, but I'm here for this movie. What a way to kick off our holiday film coverage. Mark, what is your relationship with this movie?
I saw it in the theaters when it first came out. Me and Mina, my daughter, went and saw it in the theaters a few years back. So that's how I found out about the movie. I wrote kind of a review for it for Andy over at the Alamo. Was it the best written review? Because, well, I'm not the best at that stuff. I've improved over the years, but yeah, I wrote a review for it, saw it with my daughter. She loved it, and I've kind of added it to my list of Christmas movies that I actually enjoy watching for Christmas.
I think what's so surprising about this movie is the way that it really, I don't say necessarily deconstructs, but it's brutally honest about the holidays. Because I feel like we see so much of these family movies that it's always like, we're coming together, everything's going to be fun and chipper. And the reality of it is like, no, like families are just like relationships. They are not always going to be this like holly jolly thing. Is that it's going to be sometimes it's going to be messy, and sometimes you might be in with people that you don't necessarily like. And one of my favorite sequences in this movie is a scene between Adam Scott and his son, and the son basically looks at me. He's like, why do we have to put up with people just because we share the same DNA? And I love that dynamic of like family in this movie.
So I like the opening scene. It's like a perfect description of the videos you see from like Walmarts and Targets on Black Friday, and just it's essentially is showing you what Christmas has become through the years. I'm not the biggest fan of Christmas, and it's very well known. And it's mainly because it's become a holiday of retail. People push to make it, if you don't almost go broke buying presents, then you don't really care. And the opening of the movie almost shows that in detail in what it's become. And it's kind of a story about what has Christmas become compared to what it used to be about family and everything.
Which is such an interesting dynamic because I, like you, the older I get, I don't want to say the less I like Christmas because I sound like Scrooge, but this time of year,
I'm a total Scrooge.
I wonder how much of that is actually you talking and how much of it is the old man within you talking.
I mean, Red Foreman is my spirit animal, so. No, it's just I've had multiple years of spending all of Christmas Day in a car, driving all over creation, and it became a holiday of hassle more than a holiday of family and what it's supposed to be about. So it kind of pushed it and turned me against the holiday.
No, I 100% understand that, and I think that this movie, like you said, like when it opens up, its title sequence is literally like this over-exaggerated, like Black holidays, like we're here to murder people, and in 2015 standards, that definitely feels it. But then you go back to like a great example is Black Friday 1996 when they put out Tickle Me Elmo, like people like went ape crap. Dude, like they were like stomping on people. There's a great Simpsons reference of like Black Friday, and it's like they're all trying to get into the store and Mo gets trampled and someone wore cleats. And he's like, who wears cleats to a store?
Well, it's not really that much of a parody. Every year we get to see videos from some store, either security or somebody with a cell phone, where stuff like this actually happens. Seeing like kids get knocked out by adults for a TV, and it's ridiculous.
But I think with the rise of internet shopping and cyber deals being pushed more and more by companies, I think we're starting to kind of get less and less of that. But I want to go back to something you talked about earlier in the episode, about that the love that you give for someone is wrapped up in a gift. And that's one of the things that I've always kind of despised about headaches, or about the holidays in particular, is because I never feel like the gifts that I give are adequate of the feelings that I have for the individual. And so like it's always like, am I really going to ever be able to outdo this next year? And so you have this whole like mental health crisis where you're like, oh man, like am I actually like a good son? Am I a good brother? Am I a good friend? Did I give these people what they want? And my wife and I did very light shopping this year for Christmas. But like I probably spent like upwards of like 2 hours to buy like 4 gifts, because like I wanted them to be like okay and like perfect, and like I wanted people to like understand like I value you as an individual, and I hope this is a small token of that value that you see.
For me, people say I'm hard to shop for, but it's not so much that. It's that there's not a lot that I really want or need. So if I want it, I typically pick it up, except for like November on, I start kind of trying to stop so I can give somebody an idea. But I don't really need anything, and there's not a whole lot that I want. So it's not that I'm hard to shop for. It's just that I'm fine getting together, watching a movie, having some food, and just hanging out, and I'm good.
Yeah, that's the older I get, the more like that I become, where I am not necessarily concerned about gifts. While yes, I love giving and I love getting gifts, that's cool, but I would be just fine, honestly, just getting a coffee and just kind of talking and catching up, or watching a movie. Like I love being able to spend times, like honestly, we're in the midst of planning our first film festival right now, and so like honestly some of the favorite times that I've had in the past month have just been Micah and I from That's High Praise, who's one of the programmers on the Horrific Hope Festival, which you can submit your film to at filmfreeway.com/horrific hope film festival. Link will be in the bio. But it's just been getting together with him and like getting Taco Bell and grabbing a beer and like sitting down and just watching these submissions, because like that costs nothing. It costs just your time. And honestly, like I think time is the most valuable resource you can ever give somebody.
Yeah, I think as a society in general, we've gotten away from what Christmas is. It's kind of like Valentine's is the same way. It's no longer about do you care about your loved one. It's about did you buy them a gift? Did you take them to a nice dinner? Did you spend all this money? And Christmas is the same way now. I remember as a kid, one of my favorite Christmases that I remember. I don't remember a lot about being a kid, but I do remember we went up to the mountains and stayed in what we called the schoolhouse. It's now called Phoebe Needles, up in Rocky Mount, Virginia, and it had snowed, and that was one of the best Christmases I remember. Is just spending it with all my family up in the mountains in the snow and everything, as opposed to everybody giving me a big giant pile of gifts. So because the gifts tend to, when you're a kid, you're always excited for the gifts, but the older you get, you kind of realize that the gifts don't last a lot. It's more of the memories themselves.
Yeah, and that's one of the things too, that like one of my favorite Christmases that I've ever had was actually just being able to like sit down with like my uncle and just talk about the Bible. Like it was one of the most satisfying like Christmas dinners I've ever had. And like it didn't cost him anything but his time. And I think that, that's kind of where I've been too, is like with gifts, because like I'm just like you, dude. Like I see something and I'm just like, do I have money to get it? Yes. All right. And then you go to checkout. Like my movie collection this year has exponentially grown because VHSs and other things. But I think that this film is such a great exposition of not only it kicks off the fact that it kicks off with this shopping sequence and this montage, and it's set to the most wonderful time of the year, right?
I think so. It's something like that.
So it's got this like really cheery energy to it, but it's like it doesn't hold any punches back. That it's like it's over exaggerated, but also at the same time, like, is it really? Because I think also too, and then like throughout like the first act, you kind of get to see this like almost like Christmas Vacation-esque kind of introduction to the family, where it's like it's over exaggerated, but then again, that there are people out there that like actually dread the holidays because of this exact reason.
Yeah, and making the plans and doing the decorating and doing the shopping, and it's stressful. It's a hassle. But then you have some people that love the movie Elf, and it's the best time ever. And I guess I'm just not one of those people, and will never be. But I mean, I will change that argument for Halloween in a heartbeat. It does. I think the movie as a whole, Krampus, is a movie about a family remembering the importance of family and being together. As much as it's a horror and a comedy and a Christmas movie in one, it's a movie about a family realizing the importance of family.
Since this is an audio podcast, you can't see me dead staring at Mark right now for that comment he made about Elf, because Elf is a treasure, and it is one of the very few movies outside of the horror genre that I have to watch every year at Christmas. It is like probably like my cornerstone Christmas movie.
There's two types of Christmas people, and it's a famous meme I see every year and share it. There's the people that are like Will Ferrell and Elf, like, oh my God. And then there's the people that are like the dude in Lord of the Rings, it has begun. And I'm of the second. There's not a lot of Christmas movies I like. I mean, Christmas is more of you can call me a Scrooge all day long. Bah humbug, I'll live up to it. But still, as far as Christmas movies go, Die Hard's up there at the top of my list. Krampus is up there on my yearly viewing. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. A Christmas Story. Who doesn't like A Christmas Story? That's like the best Christmas movie ever.
This guy right here. I am not a Christmas Story guy. And also, I don't know if you know this, but fellow staff member Abigail Bardwell actually has a Christmas Story tattoo on her.
I did not know that.
She loves that movie.
How in the Sam Hell can you like Elf but not like A Christmas Story?
2 words, my friend: burnout. It is very real. I watched that movie all the time growing up, and I just have burnout from it, dude. Like, the fact that TBS and TNT, or whichever one it is, plays that movie 24 hours a day. I got up Christmas morning at like 6 a.m. and I watched that movie twice every year before we open presents.
I mean, I'm like, what's your point? It's like one of the best Christmas movies ever. There's nothing wrong with that movie.
No, Elf, man. Elf. If we're talking about Christmas comedies, it's either got to be Elf or Christmas Vacation.
Christmas Vacation, I'll give you. Elf is. I'm not a Will Ferrell fan in general. I think the only movie I like that he's involved in was Megamind.
That's a weird choice, dude.
And that's because it's just his voice and I don't actually have to deal with him. Which is probably why Elf is such a horrible movie, along with all the other Will Ferrell movies ever made. So, yeah, I can't even watch that movie.
But he was in Step Brothers with Adam Scott, who is in Krampus.
Which is fine. I still don't have to deal with Will Ferrell in Krampus.
I was just trying to bring continuity back to the conversation of Krampus. No, so I, like I said at the beginning of the show, I have never seen this movie, and when we were planning out what movies we wanted to do for December, Krampus was among the ones that we wanted to do, and you have been wanting to hear what I thought about this movie since we booked this, and since I sent you the photo last night saying that I got my copy. I absolutely loved this movie. I think that there is nothing that this movie does wrong. I don't think it's not as strong of a movie as Trick or Treat, but I think that this movie does the comedy really well, the atmospheric horror really well. The performances are great. I love that Toni-Collette and Adam Scott, both very different, diverse actors and actresses, are like married in this. I love the two of them and their chemistry, but I also love the fact that you never really see Krampus until like the climax of this movie. I like how they throw it back to kind of like 70s and 80s horror where like they understand that less is more, and I really enjoyed that. Plus, there's an awesome Sam's Lollipop Trick or Treat reference in this movie as well. That I was just like, yes.
I was wondering if you caught that or not.
Yeah, I wrote it down in my notes. I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah, because it's just a split second that they flash it up on screen. He brings out his old Halloween candy stash and mentions, "Oh, this is my Halloween stash. Do you want some?" And right in the middle of it is Sam's Lollipop. So that would imply that it is part of the same universe that Trick or Treat took place in.
Which I'm all for, man. I at this point, like, Mike Dowery can do like literally any holiday themed horror movie, and I'm here for it. Like, give us a Columbus Day horror movie. Give us a President's Day movie.
So does Trick or Treat benefit from the fact that it's a Halloween movie, or do you think it's the better movie?
It benefits from the movie that it is able to not the fact that it's just a Halloween movie, but also at the same time that it is able to show multiple different stories and then connect them together in surprising ways by the end. Which is a tough feat to do.
Yeah, because Trick or Treat is essentially an anthology, and Krampus is just a straight movie, and they're both good movies. They're both fun movies, but the design they used for the Krampus is friggin' awesome when they finally show him. That's a great design for him. I've seen like the literature pictures and other pictures that have come out since, and I liked what he used for the design, as well as like the elves. The design for the elves was cool as hell. The evil angel doll and the Jack in the Box, and it had some really cool practical effect creatures in this movie too.
Which, the Jack in the Box feels like it belongs in a freaking Hellraiser movie, which is another Adam Scott reference because he was in Bloodline. But no, man, like I rarely get creeped out at movies, and anytime that thing blinked, I was like uneasy. I was like I couldn't take my eyes off of it, but I'm just like, this is just wild and weird, and I feel like, man, like I kind of want one of these to hang in my office.
I feel like the gingerbread men kind of stole the show, though. They were just so over the top and fun.
See, Goosebumps ruined this movie, that portion of the movie for me, because there are the garden gnomes in that movie that are cute but evil, and then you also had the like the Sour Patch Kids one in like the sequel, Haunted Halloween. But like by the time that they got to those the gingerbread men, I was just kind of like, okay, I see what you're doing. I mean, I've seen this before, and it's fine, but you know, it is what it is. But like the moment that I loved most with the gingerbread men is when Howie Jr. gets sucked up into the fireplace, and Toni-Collette's character goes in to save him, and she just sees the gingerbread, and she just makes eye contact with him and just loses it.
I mean, what are you supposed to do when you're getting attacked by a killer gingerbread man that's pulling people up a chimney like it's fishing?
I will say, though, like, the introduction of the gingerbread man, like, had me. Like, where I was just like, oh, this is just, you know, this is a bait, and then it comes to life, and I'm just like, what fresh hell is this? Like what is next?
Well, the first time they show the gingerbread man, one is stabbed through the chest and stuck to, like, a refrigerator.
Yes.
That's the first time you see a gingerbread man, but you don't know what the deal is yet. You don't really know exactly what's going on, other than Krampus has made a shadowy appearance. The Jack-in-the-Box has made a little bit of an appearance. And now you've got a gingerbread man stabbed to a wall or a fridge or whatever.
Yeah, and in terms of, like, other, like, creatures that are, like, I guess, like, Krampus henchmen, I will say the introduction of the Jack-in-the-Box is very well placed. The way that it is basically Adam Scott's daughter goes to see her boyfriend, and she's, like, hiding underneath of this truck and trying
DHL.
Yeah, trying to escape from Krampus, because she's our introduction to Krampus. And what a great introduction, by the way. Santa, eat your heart out. Also, but then you just kind of see, like, he just leaves this, like, very tiny box. And it never opens. And I think that that's, like, a mark of, like, mastery filmmaking. When you can, like...
No, it opens.
Does it? It does open, but you don't actually see it, because it, like, the camera, like, pans away.
Well, it opens, and you start seeing the top of the head to, like, the eyes as it slowly comes out instead of popping.
That is
out
right.
Like
Yeah. I just remember the entire DHL thing shaking and, like, her screaming.
Yeah, it was. There was, like, the angel, the evil angel doll. That thing was pretty cool looking in itself, just like attacking people and hanging Toni-Collette by the Christmas lights. And there really wasn't any bad design in this movie for a character at all.
No, I absolutely love the character design, and I think that one of the things that makes this movie such a rarity is that we don't see Christmas horror anymore, and if we do see Christmas horror, it is, like, made for Tubi Christmas horror. And
yeah, it's family friendly and campy and cheesy.
I wouldn't even say that it's family friendly, because, like, if you remember, like, I didn't see this movie, but, like, I remember when this came out to DVD, there was so many
There were so many.
As I said, I've never seen this movie before, but I remember when it came out on DVD and Blu-ray, there was so many Krampus knockoffs from this movie, and they were, like, just DIY projects, and, like, stuff like this, they typically are just very poorly made. I've never seen those, so I can't speak to any. They could be really fantastic. I've never seen them. And if you're one of those filmmakers and happen to come across it, I apologize for the comment I'm about to make. But I feel like, with the exception of those movies, Krampus is a rarity in filmmaking because, like, we don't get quality Christmas horror like this anymore. And also at the same time, all the character designs are brilliant. Like, I can't remember the last time I looked at like a creature feature or a mainstream horror film like this and been like pointed to it and just been like, man, like every design in this is just jaw-droppingly like grotesque and just what it needs to be.
If you or someone you know is listening to this podcast right now and you're struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, we encourage you guys to please reach out. This is the heartbeat of why we do what we do. Suicide is currently the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and as of this recording, there are 132 suicides that take place each and every day on American soil. And when you scale back internationally, there are 800,000 successful suicides. That is one death roughly every 40 seconds. So if you or someone you know is struggling, you guys can go to victimsandvillains.net/hope. That resource is going to be right in the description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this. There you'll find resources that include the National Suicide Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. You can also text HELP to 741-741. We also have a plethora of other resources, including churches, getting connected with counselors, LGBT resources like the Trevor Project, and also veteran hotline as well. Please, if you hear nothing else in the show, understand that you listening to this right now, have value and worth. We get it. Suicide, depression, mental health, these are hard topics, and the stigma around them doesn't make it any easier. But please consider the resources right in the descriptions below wherever you guys are listening, because once again, you have value and you have worth. So please stay with us.
Yeah, it's really just an excellent horror movie all the way around. And the fact that it's a Christmas movie is almost irrelevant to the fact of what it actually is. It's just an excellent horror movie in general. Plus, it's a Christmas movie. So before that, you had Gremlins. The first Gremlins movie was a horror comedy for Christmas. You had Black Christmas, and Red Christmas was another one that Shudder has. They were primary slashers, almost everything up until this point, with the exception of Gremlins, obviously.
Even Gremlins has some slasher qualities to it.
Yeah,
I still call it that, so I'm gonna edit that out and take it again. You're fine. You're fine.
I tried.
Even Gremlins itself has a slasher-esque quality to it, but you're absolutely right, because even the ones that we've seen in the last few years have been Christmas slashers. It's never a Christmas horror. It's always Christmas slashers, with the exception of the new Shudder original, the Advent Calendar, which I urge everyone to check out because it's truly great horror. But I think that, even the one we got a couple years ago from Shudder, Better Watch Out, is also another Christmas slasher. And so Krampus is kind of the first one that we've seen in a while that is just really embracing kind of like the mythological side of horror, kind of dowsing into the fantasy, but also bringing a different country's folklore to our front door.
Yeah, it deals with Krampus and krampus-the-naughty-cut, essentially. Krampus is a creature that basically comes and takes the kids that don't believe and misbehave in folklore, where you got Santa that comes along and gives all the good kids presents. And it's cool to see something different than what we had gotten up to that point. it was cool to see something kind of new and interesting with interesting designs and a fun story. And it was, there wasn't anything that I can think of like it when it came out.
I even being what 6-7 years removed from this movie's initial reality, I think that there hasn't been anything like it quite since.
Yeah, the closest thing, like I said earlier, would be Gremlins. It's a creature feature Christmas movie. I mean, I may be wrong. Somebody else might know horror better than we do. I wouldn't be surprised if they do, and they might know of a Christmas horror movie that we're not thinking of that would fall into this category. But as far as I can remember, I can't really recall anything. And if it is, it's usually not as good as this one was overall.
Very true. I mean, they still make Christmas movies that are horror. They're just not as good as what we're seeing here.
They're primarily, like we said, they're primarily slashers of some sort.
Yeah, and that's not to say that slashers are a bad thing, because I think both of us are pretty decent fans of the subgenre, but like there's so much limitation in the slasher genre. And the slasher genre is also very predictable, and you come back down to the famous scene from Scream explaining all of the rules of what a slasher can and cannot be.
Yeah, and this it didn't fit any of that. And it didn't follow any of those rules. It didn't turn up with, well, depending on how you interpret it, it may have had a happy ending. It may not have had a happy ending. It just depends on how you look at it. It's just, and something else that led to it is that it was a whole lot of traditional effects and makeup and costume. It wasn't a lot of computer. Obviously, the gingerbread men were computer. Obviously, that's a given. They had to be. And there were a few small scenes here and there, but when they finally show you Krampus, he's a big hulking puppet person in a costume, big giant beastie that's friggin' awesome. And that plays to its favor as well.
I think what's so unique about Krampus is the scene in particular, and before I get into what I'm going to say, I just want to give a brief aside real quick, and I guess we can perhaps go off on a rabbit trail before returning back to what I was going to say, is that so the backstory to Krampus and kind of like Omi's connection to Krampus is all claymation. I love that this movie embraces everything about holidays, right down to like those old CBS specials with Frosty the Snowman and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And I don't know if you grew up watching those, man, but like those were like always like a cornerstone growing up for my sister and I.
Yeah, I saw them growing up. They kind of bored me. But that's my last memories of them, which may not be that long ago. So, yeah, I used to see those. Did you pick up that it seems like Omi may have been a child after World War II?
I did not.
They don't give a clear time frame on when her incident with Krampus was. But the way it's made out to be, it seems like it could be post-recovery Europe, World War II.
That would make so much more sense, and that's a perfect segue into what I was going to originally say before we start talking about the claymation, is that Krampus is basically the result of losing hope. And so Omi has this monologue throughout the course of the film, and she's kind of alluding to what she was like as a young girl and kind of how Christmas was a really big deal, and then it became kind of less and less and less, and then she eventually kind of gave up with like everyone else did. And if if it is set in World War II, that makes a lot more sense, because here you have a country that's reeled with something traumatic that happened, and it, it's not like we can just move right on and kind of go from there. But I think that that's such a great allegory, Krampus and kind of being a mental health focused podcast, is the fact that, I think that there are situations that come up in our own lives, and especially this year around holidays, there's a common misconception that, winter and the holidays are the highest rates of suicide. And from my research, that's it's actually like spring, kind of like end of summer, end of winter, early spring is when the highest rates of suicide are. But I feel like because of some of the things that we talked about very early in the show, it's very easy to lose hope this time of year because, family, your family dynamic might be something very similar, or it might be something worse that Krampus presents in the first act of this movie, or you're experiencing the pressure of trying to get a gift, or you're spending the holidays alone, or there's a number of other things in here, but ultimately what ends up happening, the reason why Krampus comes to this family is because Max basically gives up hope. He basically says, I don't believe in Santa anymore, and it starts this chain of events. But I think that that's at its core. Krampus is essentially a symbol of what it's like to lose hope. So subsequently also, things like addiction or alcoholism or depression are suicide are factors of, they're all avatars of losing hope.
Yeah. It is the whole incident, and Omi says the same thing in her story. It's the only time in the movie she speaks English is when she tells her story, and then she goes back to speaking German. And yeah, if you paid attention, that's the only time she speaks English. That's it. But it essentially, everything goes wrong for the holiday, and somebody just loses all faith and hope in their family, in miracles, in everything that revolves around Christmas. And that's almost the doorway being opened for Krampus. And it's a lot of it you do see and hear about it around the holidays. It's a major time of almost mass depression. You end up with seasonal depression due to the lack of daylight, cloudiness, and all that, coupled with people struggling to pay bills and get presents for family and kids and everything involved around it. I feel sorry for you if you're a retail worker. I'm sorry. That may be one of the many reasons I'm not a fan of Christmas, is I used to work retail at one point, and people are just shitty to employees of retail stores during the Christmas holiday. There's almost no humanity left in those people that are out there trying to find the perfect gift, and it's the employee's fault. So it makes perfect sense that you end up with a time of year like that that's riddled with depression and suicide and things like that.
And I mean, yeah, like another thing that I really want to like hone in on is like the fact that while yes, like this time of year, like it is a higher rate of suicide because there are huge pressures, not only from societal expectations, traditions, family, and you mentioned retail workers. Like I used to work in customer service, and this time of year was always the time of year that like I hated most, just because like people just kind of they go back to, they resort, this is the word I was looking for, they resort to kind of like just primal ugliness. And everyone is, if you're out of stock, or God forbid, like you don't have the toy that your son or daughter needs, that is like almost like the end of the world kind of thing. And I think that, we really kind of show how ugly we can get. And we joked around earlier about the opening to this film. And I think that losing hope, it results into things like we had mentioned earlier, like alcoholism, drug addiction, self-harm, or even suicide. And, Krampus is the result of losing hope, as I've previously mentioned. And one of the fascinating things about Max is that, he talks about once after he hears Omi's story, is he's like, I think I brought this on, and eventually, the ending is up for interpretation about what it means, but I think that ultimately he kind of realizes that even in the darkest of situations, to always retain and hold on to hope.
Yeah, it's. I think it goes back to what I said earlier, that it's a story about a family coming together and learning to appreciate each other. But the overall themes are still there. Him losing his hope and just faith in Christmas and the holidays and how it should be, or how he sees it should be, and things like that. It's like that for a lot of people. Like I said earlier, for the last few years, this is probably going to be the first year that I'm not going to spend all of Christmas Day in a car, just driving from house to house to house to house. And that's not unusual for some families. They just spend all day going from house, have a meal here, open a couple presents, go to the next house. If you've got kids that have other parents' house in a separated household, then you're dropping off kids or picking up kids, and it almost ruins the holiday having to just spend all day running and not really getting any time to just sit and enjoy the family that you have.
Yeah, that's one of the hard things too about balancing families, especially now that, for both of us, we're married, and we've been married for a while. And it's one of the things that, like, my wife and I, there's always this expectation that we need to visit family on Christmas, or be around our families on Christmas Eve or Christmas, or some variation thereof. And we live pretty far from both of our parents now, being in Virginia. And so, like, the first couple years that we were married, like, it was always like, how do we carry on these societal, I don't want to say traditions, because I feel like that's a bad word, but like expectations, while also at the same time carving out our own time to create our own memories and our own traditions. And so, like, that was always, like, really hard. And then my wife and I, like, I want to say it was probably on the third year we were married, we set aside where we'd be like, all right, like, this is the day we're gonna go visit my family, this is the day we're gonna go visit your family. But at the end of the day, like, we're gonna carve out like 5 hours for ourselves, and these are the traditions that we're gonna go have. We'll go see a movie, we'll go get Chinese, and we'll call it a night. Like, just to harken it back to a Christmas story, like, I think that it's really important to, not necessarily live up to societal expectations, but also to, carve out your own traditions and do what makes you happy at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it can help take some of the stress out of the holidays to do stuff like that. Like my family, my parents are fairly understanding with all that, and we'll have Christmas with them either the weekend before or the weekend after is usually what we end up doing, or a night during the week. It just depends on everybody's schedule. I have most of my family is here where I live, so I have fairly large family. Like, we just got together for Christmas or for Thanksgiving, and it was 30 something people showed up, and almost all of them are local. And my wife's family is kind of spread out across the country. She's got family in multiple states: Florida, North Carolina, Tennessee. I think she's got some up in Connecticut. So it's harder for her to see her family during holidays. Like, this is going to be the first year that she doesn't have any of her direct family in town. So it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment for her. And being that she works in retail, she can't take off the time to go out there for Christmas to see her family. And it's part of the problem with working in retail is you don't have the freedom to go see family during holidays, especially during the Christmas season. Thanksgiving, Christmas, all the way out to February, there's not that freedom to go out and see your family like you would during the rest of the year.
Now, I 100% just want to echo that. Like, it is one of the hardest things too, and like when you are in a different town than the rest of your family, it makes it even more difficult. And in your case, you have kids also that you're trying to balance out as well. And like, I think that one of the smartest things that this film does extremely well is they talk about the difficulty with family, that there are some family members that people like legitimately just don't like being around because it's bad for their mental health for a number of reasons. And Aunt Dorothy, I think, is a great example of that, to where you can kind of see Toni-Collette's turns to her sister once like she's left, and she's like, hey, like, she says something to the extent of, like, hemorrhoids are a surprise. But this is a tragedy. Like, you have to give me like warning before this. And I always think that that's such a funny thing to throw in there. But I think it does a really smart way of that actually saying that too.
But even her later in the movie, she becomes a functioning member of the family. She pulls together with the family later on.
But she's kind of forced into it because Krampus.
So she still becomes... She actually sacrifices herself to try to save some of the others. And she takes out some little demonic toys. So she does become a functioning member of the family at a certain point.
That's fair. I will give you that. But I mean, sometimes it takes. Go ahead.
Her character is fun though.
Yeah, no doubt there. She has some of the best lines in the entire movie, and like just her dry like delivery. I was like, I'm here for this. Like, I absolutely loved her in 2.5 Men. So like when she showed up, I was like, dude, yes, bet.
Come on, kids, let me teach you how to make peppermint schnapps.
Dude, the fact that Howie Jr. just looks at her like deadpan and he's like, come on, give it to me. And he doesn't even say anything, and she's just like, all right, here you go.
He's that way the entire movie. He has the same look and never says a word the entire movie.
I kind of wonder what the casting process was like for that kid. Where they're like, you don't have to say anything literally the entire time. You just have to look hungry and confused the whole movie.
You just have to stare at people stupidly. That's all. That's your job. Just look stupid.
Speaking of Howie Jr. too, is another Christmas movie that I feel like does not get enough love this time of year is The Bad Santa. Bad Santa. Because Howie Jr. looks just like the kid from Bad Santa. So.
Yeah, I always thought the same thing. So, yeah, he does. He looks just like that kid. That kid's an idiot in that movie, too.
How would you guys like to help us get mental health resources into schools, conventions, and other events? Well, now you can. Simply go to patreon.com/victims and villains for as little as $1 a month. You guys can help us get mental health resources into current and upcoming generations, educate and break down stigma surrounding mental health, suicide, and depression. And you get exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. And you guys can tell us which Nicolas Cage movie you want us to cover, and we'll do it. All it takes to get started is to go to patreon.com/victims and villains, or simply click the link in the episode description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this episode. Pick your tier and get started today. Yes, it's that simple. So quickly select the tier that you want and help us get hope into the hands of the depressed and the suicidal today.
But going back to Aunt Dorothy, I think that, any time that you have a situation like, maybe not to this extreme, but once it kind of becomes like this, like everyone has to unite together kind of thing, then stances on where you stand with current like family members or like just people in general, like it's going to change regardless.
Well, when you get to the end of the movie, and obviously I think we've passed the point of spoilers at this point, when you get to the end of the movie, they're all happy to see each other and they don't realize what's going on. The kid, the main character, he knows something's off, but he doesn't realize what until he opens his present and it's the Krampus bell. And then kind of everybody starts remembering what happened. But until that point, you see them all happy to see each other and joking and laughing and talking, and complete opposite of how the movie started when the family showed up and they all hated each other and complained about the cooking and everything that they could, basically.
Yeah. Let's jump into that ending, because like did you read it? Like I guess like for me it's like I feel like they kind of did all die and they're kind of like stuck in this like Krampus purgatory.
Yeah. It's a movie that doesn't have a happy ending. They got captured by Krampus. The thing with Krampus is my understanding, and I could be wrong, I'm sure somebody will correct us, but he shows up. There's what is it, the Germanic area of Europe was primarily what his folklore was from. Was he showed up and would take away the bad kids, basically. He showed up and kidnapped the bad kids. And I know there's more to it, and I'm super simplifying it. But that's kind of what happened here, is he showed up to take away the bad Christmas people. That didn't enjoy it, that hated each other, that fought, that didn't believe. And it's kind of a take on that. He comes and takes them all.
Well, let's go down a rabbit trail of legends and lore, because I have, and I will provide a link in the description below. All of this information comes from Britannica.com, and this is kind of just dissecting what the legend of Krampus actually is. This article is written by Amy Tyken, and quote, Krampus in Central Europe is a popular legend and who is half demon monster that punishes misbehaving children at Christmas time, like you said. He is also the devilish companion of Saint Nicholas, and Krampus is believed to have originated in Germany, which would make sense because of Omi, and his name is derived from the German word Krampen, which means claw.
I mean, I'm good with it. Apparently there were lesser known to the United States until this movie come out. Apparently there were countries that still held like Krampus-nacht festivals, Krampus night, and I know Winchester, where we're doing the
Horrific Hope.
Yeah, where we're doing that next year. They were doing a Krampus-nacht. I'm not sure if they're doing one this year or not in Old Town. But yeah, once this came out, that started becoming a big thing in the States, even though it was already being done in areas of Europe.
And that is filmfreeway.com/horrific hope film festival. Submit your film and or feature today. All right, you want to learn more about Krampus?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, so Krampus was thought to be part of let's start over again. Krampus was thought to have been a part of pagan rituals for winter solstice, which, if you guys know anything about winter solstice, it is said to be the longest night of the year. And I believe, I could be wrong, and I'm just going off of the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina here, but pagans and or I believe Satanists, I could be completely wrong, winter solstice, because it's the longest night of the year, actually is like the closest thing to Christmas for practicing members of both of those religions, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on that.
That I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I just know it's fun.
According to legend, he is the son of Hel, the Norse god of the underworld, and with the spread of Christianity, Krampus became associated with Christmas despite efforts by the Catholic Church to ban him. The creature and St. Nicholas are said to arrive on the evening of December 5th, which is, as you were saying, Krampus nuts, which means Krampus night, and while St. Nicholas rewards nice children by leaving presents, Krampus beats those who are naughty with branches and sticks.
I mean, there's some people that are into that, so.
It's, in some cases, oh man, this takes a really dark turn. In some cases, he is said to eat them or take them to hell. And on December 6th, St. Nicholas Day, children awake to find their gifts or nurse their injuries. There's not much here, so I'm just gonna keep reading. Festivities including Krampus include the German word, which I'm not going to try and pronounce. It means Krampus run. And this activity, which often involves alcohol, people dressed as the creature and parade through the streets, scaring spectators, and sometimes people chasing them. Beginning in the late 20th century, amid efforts to preserve cultural heritage, Krampus runs became increasingly popular in Austria and Germany. And during this time, Krampus began to celebrate internationally, and the monster's growing appeals was evident by numerous horror films, and some claimed that the expanding popularity of Krampus was a reaction to the commercialization of Christmas, which makes total sense.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the Krampus stuff on Wikipedia. Yeah, it's a fantastic holiday. More people should celebrate it like Halloween.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I definitely wanted to make sure that we threw in some of the lore and like how people celebrate it, because our next episode is very high and rich with Christmas and vampires. So didn't want to feel like we were alienating anyone, but yeah, this movie is like we were saying, is just incredible from start to finish. I love seeing the cast in this is all fantastic. Mike Dougherty, please come out of retirement, because I really want to see what you got next, man. I absolutely love your films.
Supposedly, there's rumors that he is actually working on Trick or Treat 2.
Man, that has been in the works since like Trick or Treat 1 hit like cult status like 5 years ago.
I saw an article pop up about it fairly recently. That it's supposed to be closer than ever, but who knows? You know how that can go sometimes.
Yeah,
I would also I would accept a Krampus too as well.
I mean, I'd be accepting of that. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think this movie is it's a lot of fun. I'm really glad that we were able to do it this year. And
you should do an Easter movie,
dude, Killer Bunny. Killer Easter Bunny.
I see a lot of potential for an Easter movie in this style.
All right. Pitch me an Easter movie real quick in this style. What would you do?
Well, I mean, you've got the aspect of the candy, like Sam would use as weapons. You've got eggs, which could be bombs or have little monsters or gremlins in them, little bastards. There's a lot of... It could be a zombie movie, considering that Yes, it could be a zombie movie. Um, then again, I'm not a writing genius, so yeah.
All right, so this is the movie that I would pitch, and it's partially a revenge tale. So this is set in the world of Trick or Treat and Krampus, where the Easter Bunny of this world is tired of Krampus and Santa Claus and Sam getting all the glory. So he comes instead of giving the Easter eggs and Easter baskets, what he decides to do is he gives Easter baskets, but all the candy in it is covered in flesh-eating bacteria and creates his own zombies.
You could also take the cannibal route too.
We could.
You could go with a cannibal route, but then you'd piss off all the Christians. So,
I mean, as a Christian and as a representation of, no, I can't say all Christians because, yeah, that's another story for another day. I will say that I would be here for that. I would give it a shot. Whether or not, if it crossed over into sacrilegious territory, then I might rethink it, but I would at least go in with an open mind.
Yeah, that would be the next one I could see the potential for.
All right, let's make it.
About, what is it? Ash Wednesday?
Yeah, Ash Wednesday.
Sunday.
Ash Wednesday.
Could be an art movie.
All right. Well, I think right now we're just reaching for time. Krampus-the-naughty-cut is out now via Scream Factory, wherever you guys get your movies from, and it's a great movie. It's a holiday classic. So, Mark, where can people find you online?
I've got all my painting on Instagram. That's really the only place I hang out other than here. Titanium Juggernaut Painting.
All right. Well, you guys can find us everywhere follow our parent company, Victims and Villains. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube as well, wherever you guys get your podcast from. If you guys would like to hear more podcasts like this, to become a Patreon supporter, find movie reviews, and most importantly, our mental health resource library, or to also submit your film to the film festival we've talked about several times in this, go to victimsandvillains.net, where you guys can look in the link in the description below where you guys can find it. But you guys can find me on I am at Captain Nostalgia on Letterboxd. And until next time, remember that the longer that you gaze into the abyss, the more the abyss gazes back into you guys.